And welcome to this Thursday edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForrest. Very happy to have you guys with us. I've been on a little bit of a roll of late in a variety of capacities as we've had two straight 2-in-1 days here. First with Scotty M, and he was all over the place. I mean, you talk about the big trifecta there. As he was betting in one day's session, he had an NHL game, a Major League Baseball game, and a college game out of the NIT. And I believe he hit 2 out of 3, and then Troy West yesterday is betting baseball over unders and all kinds of crazy stuff. So we've been hitting it. We welcome to the show Mike Jones. Always a pleasure. Mike's with us every Monday and Thursday, and of course we're in wild anticipation. And I thought this would be the year of the cleaning lady again. It was more of a chalk player's dream, milk of magnesia time, as we say it. 4 number 1 seeds left in the Final Four of the NCAA tournament. 2 games that may not be so easy to peg. I've been thinking about barking with both dogs, maybe even a little taste on the money line in both of these spots. But Michael, first off, how are you? And we have one shot. We're kind of partnered up in a bracket pool.
Yeah.
And we have one shot to take it all down, but we need a series of miracles with the Houston Cougars winning both games, winning it all, and then we cash, which would be great. So how are you feeling about all this?
I would feel a lot better if Houston had a little NIL money left for Akeem Olajuwon right about now. But, it's going to be fun. Houston put up a great show last week against Tennessee, holding the number 2 seed to 15 points and a half, which was an all-time low in tournament history. If they play like that, we got a shot. So that's the team that we're riding right now in our pool, that if Houston gets to the finals, I think we have a shot. If they win, I think you win it. I think that's how it works.
We win it all if they outright, if they end up beating Florida in the final, which was the way that I had it. And if they beat Auburn, we have to split first and second with another guy. But we have to get there first. So how do we get there? I was just talking with a gentleman on another show. He's been around college basketball for, it seems like, a quarter of a century, a young guy named Scott Spinelli. And he was just recently the head coach at Chicago State. I'm just judging and making a quick assessment that didn't go so well because he just got the job last year. And his record all-time as a head coach with only one other stint, which was an interim job at Boston College. Not sure if that encompassed 1 or 2 games or whatever, but his overall coaching record was 5-31. Oof. So I'm assuming most of that was, just being puked on there at Chicago State. Lost the job. But a very knowledgeable guy, and he pointed out to me that the Cougars are the number 1 percentage three-point shooting team, even though we think of them for their oppressive, really submissive defense, the kind of defense that, when you're in your men's league there, Mike Jones, isn't the first thing you call token pressure only?
Yeah.
They are anything but that. They are relentless pressure, and you would think maybe it's not enough to offset Duke, but if they can hit 3-pointers, which they do, and do it with a little bit of frequency, listen, you need a lot of luck to overcome a 5-point outlay of points by Duke, but to win the game outright. But what do you think? I mean, are they in there with a chance?
Well, as a junkie and a little junior coach and played all my life and, had a whistle in my mouth for a time too, I will tell you that I love watching Houston play by the way they defend. And that's the old school and Kelvin Sampson, who is bringing that version of play into, basketball now. And he's got the guys buying in. The problem I see is for Tennessee was Ziegler's a little bit short of size, and I think it showed as they muscled him and bumped him and didn't let him get to his spots. And then when he did get into the lane out of frustration, he was throwing shots up, and the help side defense, I think every shot he took in the paint was blocked in the first half. And I think when you get into that mindset where you're getting ready to block every shot that's coming, the player's looking to alter. It's an embarrassing time for the player. It's the only big momentum, say, outside of a crazy dunk, I think, is when you block a shot and gets the crowd and the defense going. So to me, I like this. But here's the challenge, I think. I don't think they had the post pressure offensively that Tennessee has. The Duke has a much better look offensively in the post. Flag has got a lot of moves, number 1 player in the draft. They have a 7-2 guy. Duke is a little bit more versatile offensively in and out. And I think that's where the problem goes. I said to you Monday, and I believe it. If the bigs in Houston get in foul trouble, that's going to be the problem. I think watching the way early on, this might be a live bet because watching the way the game's officiated to me is going to be an important way of looking at it.
Yeah.
And
Well, and you would have to think too. I mean, look, the conspiracy theorists are going to be out in force if Houston gets two of their key guys with two quick fouls inside of the first 12 minutes,
sure,
let's say, and now that they have to play compromise the rest of the way, and that's just not going to fly. I mean, when you look at Duke, they seem to be they're even money to win the whole thing for
right.
a reason. They look to be somewhat of
Mhm.
a cinch.
Yeah,
Seem to have just too much firepower. I mean, they're not awful defensively either,
yeah,
and they're huge.
yeah,
You're talking about. I mean, when you were out there as a 6 foot guard, and then all of a sudden you ran into like Jeff Petrie, and the guy's 6'5".
yeah,
That was a lot to overcome.
yeah.
You're talking about block shots. I never minded getting a shot blocked, by the way, because I just figured I was going to pop another one. And usually you got the ball back when the shot got blocked. Unless they were very adept at keeping the thing in bounds. When a guy used to just send one into the stands, I never cared. Being a chucker,
Yeah.
you have to be committed to the idea
Oh,
that you're going to make the next shot. Yeah, it does. It does change momentum, and if you have people, it gets inside your head, and they're thinking, "Oh my God, so and so's in the paint. I'm going to
yeah.
have to hoist this one up a little bit more trajectory." And yeah, I mean that could be a big. It's definitely a dismantling defense,
hmm
and one where you could easily see teams getting frustrated.
Yeah, and that's what I saw with Tennessee. I mean, they went 1 for 15 from three, and in the last couple minutes of the half, they had pretty good open looks. The first, I thought 12 minutes, everything was really contested. What Tennessee was doing, they had 8 points with 5 minutes to go in the half.
Yeah,
And Tennessee's a very good team. I mean, to me, it was the most impressive defensive half of basketball that I had seen in quite some time.
sure.
And when you feel that, if that doesn't get you momentum, going into this game, I don't know what will, but the challenge is going to be there because they're going to be, this is the first time I think Houston's really going to have a size differential in favor of Duke. I think they're a little bit bigger, and I just find this to be a great matchup. I like both of them having the SEC game and Florida and Auburn, and going to the Duke Houston matchup. I think is going to be really good. But again, number one seeds. First time I've picked all four right in a while, and I hate that going to number one
You and
seed.
Barack Obama, the
Yeah,
bracket.
I mean, there they are sitting there, and then you worry like the stories ride now. Like, can the mid major ever compete in this tournament again? Are we going to be stuck with watching these mid majors run to the basketball crown, which I'm enjoying a little bit of
Yeah.
watching last night? I loved hearing it. Gus Johnson, the great Gus Johnson, who I love listening to, brings it out as Nebraska's winning that game against Georgetown. There's $50,000 for each of these players. This
Yeah,
is where it's going to come to, and I think
the
there's going
NIL.
to be a strange momentum for this kind of basketball. They're not drawing a good attendance out there. If I was living in Vegas, which I did for 10 years, I would be at this event for sure
Yeah.
as a junkie. But, it's just a very interesting time to see where this is all going to head because, you're starting to see the elite teams by the NIL and how they compose these teams or seem to have a little bit more of an advantage.
From a degenerate standpoint, I believe they took those games off the board because there was so much uncertainty about who was actually going to be playing and who was not going to be in and out of the lineup
Yeah.
there. And maybe even guys that are already in the transfer
Yeah.
portal are
Right.
still with teams. Sure, if there's a 50,000 per player incentive, that's enough to maybe maintain
Yeah.
their interest. But beyond that, from a betting standpoint, some attractive games, at least on paper, in terms of point
Yeah.
spreads and valuations. Ended up being no contest because you couldn't bet them. The
Right.
Vegas people took them down in their own in-city tournament there. So that
Yeah.
was kind of weird. All right. So the question then would be just to wrap up on this Final Four thing.
Sure.
All right. So with the 5 points, it was 4.5. It went to 5.5. I saw it at 5 today. Which way are you going? Are you going to take 5 points with Houston and hope that defense holds up and that they make enough shots to stay in there? Maybe find a way to rattle Duke. It's not like Duke came in undefeated, but certainly their margins of victory have been amazing. And in those Ken Palm numbers, they rank number one in the two critical categories.
Mhm.
So that are most often cited as what will be the determining factor in the game. And yeah, it's going to be tough. But are you going to go ahead and lay 5 with Duke, or take the 5 with Houston and now?
I think I'm a live better. I start off with a small bet on Houston and be a live better. I think I want to watch how the game's officiated.
Okay.
I know that's a new way of looking at it. Might bet the half, but I would take a small bet on Houston for root for our pool kind of thing, and just
Yeah.
because I like the way Houston plays, so it's not an advantage to a player. I think if I'm a player in this particular game, I think the line's right where it should be. I would kind of get a feel for the game early on and play it. And I think, I'll bring up something, a stat in baseball, which I think is interesting, that I think the new way is evolving. Yes, the juice is wide. The bookmakers figured out that the way they can attack it is by spreading out the juice to get it to their advantage, which means there might be some advantage to the player if they had to change the laws and kind of make it so they want 30 and 40-cent juice on a live bet. So I'm
Yeah.
going to look at this game and say I prefer Florida over Auburn, and we didn't really talk about that game. I would bet Florida in that game, but I think in this particular game I might be more of a watcher after a small bet on Houston.
All right. Kind of a mind bender last night in the NBA. 10-point favorite. Boston Celtics 9-game winning streak going against the Miami Heat, who were much more likely to be remembered for their 10-game losing streak than the current 5-game streak they were on going into that game. 10-point dogs. They get to the fourth quarter. They had seen a 22-point lead, which is fairly common for the Miami Heat. Dissipate down to 4. You thought, okay, here we go. Same old story. And then they explode in the last 5 minutes of the game and end up winning that thing going away. Team that was given up for dead. And that's one of the strange things about degenerate gambling. So I don't know if you're inclined to lay anything out for the players tonight, but just when you have a beat on what's happening, Celtics, 9-game winning streak, just franchise for $6 billion. All other players are out there, I think, with the exception. I don't think Porzingis was in that game.
No, Porzingis didn't play. I watched a lot of it. The Heat were energized. It's a typical game where, Boston's locked into the second seed pretty much. They know Cleveland's probably get the 1. They just looked like they were chucking up threes. They were turning it over. The Heat just, that you waiting for Boston to take that run. And all of a sudden you're watching the game and the Heat get it up to 14 with a shot at the buzzer at the half. And now you're like, what's the second half line? Second half line comes out Boston 11. Well, the Celtics sure aren't going to lose.
Yeah.
And if you're watching these games now, these second half, the weaker teams seem to go. But the Heat are playing for something. They're a 9-10 game against the Bulls. They don't want to go on the road. There's pride here in Miami with the franchise. And you see the lead start going as Boston starts knocking down threes and the Heat turn over, where Boston had 3 threes in a row to knock the lead down from 21 to 12, timeout once, timeout twice. Now it's a 4. Then all of a sudden you see the Heat stretch it back based on the fact that Boston starts missing those shots that they just hit late in the third quarter. I mean, to watch a game go from a 21-point lead with 9 minutes to go in the third quarter to a 4-point game with 3 minutes to go in the third quarter is just astounding to me how the possessions are so fast and how Boston does it. But the Heat withstood it tonight, and they play Boston tough. They've beaten them in series when they were underdogs. Didn't surprise me as much as it normally would surprise a lot of people. But the interesting part of the basketball betting now in the NBA was, I think if you look at last night, you had the Clippers were a 17, 18-point favorite. The Thunder were a 13-point favorite. They covered. The Pacers were a 14-point favorite. They tied. Sacramento was laying 12 on the road in Washington and lost outright. The Heat were getting 10. There's all these double-digit favorites, which are telling you teams are resting guys, teams are preparing. And then there's one game tonight that's very intriguing.
All right. You know what? I knew you were getting to some.
I'm going to get you some because it's another 12-point line. So here we go. Milwaukee goes to Philly. We've been talking a lot about how Philly looks like they packed it in. 7 of their guys who are on their opening roster aren't even playing tonight. So you got Maxey out, Embiid out, George out. They packed it in. They have Grimes, the guard, that's averaging 27.5 points a game, and he's like resting and, all these different things you're seeing. But Milwaukee's playing for a seed. They're at 6. They've had a nice game against Phoenix the other night, another team we were going against. But they're laying 12. Such a big, big line. I'm going to still lay it. Even without Damian Lillard. I just think that teams playing for them. I'm really watching how Philly's packing it in. They were 14-point dog, 13-point dog and lost by 14 to the Knicks. We're down 21 and closed the gap at the end of the game. Last night the Clippers are up 20. Empty the bench with 2:45 to go and don't get the cover, lose by 16. So you got to watch all this stuff. But in this particular game, watching Philly with Sunday, they're getting 3.5. It's an open day against Toronto. I'm like, Toronto's playing well. How can you not lay it? Line goes off at 6.5. They lose by 20. Something's wrong in Philly. I'm going to go against Philly and go with Milwaukee tonight.
I was thinking when you were talking about that Heat game and the fact that it looked like they were about to spit the bit. I mean, they have collapsed faster in fourth quarters of games than Sam Bankman-Fried's empire. I mean, one day you're partying in the Bahamas, the next day you're behind bars.
Yeah.
I mean, a tendency, an unfortunate trend all year long. So you were fully expecting that was going to be the case. It would have been easy to be duped. That's the beauty of sports this time of the year.
Sure.
And, you're looking at the Dodgers now tied a record where they had tied a record of the most wins out of the chute by a defending champion. The record was held by the 1933 New York Yankees, your favorite team. I don't even think you were in the bleachers at that point. You weren't even a gleam in your father's eye. But the Bambino, Lou Gehrig, I mean, they're doing things that are so historic.
Yeah.
The question would be, did anybody have the balls to bet them to go undefeated on the season? 162-0, first ever.
Well, can I throw you out a good Dodger stat for our gamblers out there? So the Dodgers go and play 2 games in Japan, come back and have played 6. They played 3 against Detroit and 3 against Atlanta. The very interesting part of this is that the Dodgers have been down in 6 of the 8 wins. And last night at 5-2, you could have made a bet at the Dodgers at plus 200.
Wow.
And then got paid as Ohtani hits the home run in the 9th inning.
How great would that be to get 2-1 on the Ohtani homer?
Right. Well, no, but 2-1 in the 4th or 5th inning when they're down 5-2.
Yeah.
So the point you're making, they were down 5-0 last night. If you really got guts, you keep betting it. You might not want to bet the Dodgers at the start of the game. You might want to bet them when they're down. Undefeated.
That's a new trend in gambling, though. We've been talking about that.
Yeah, I mean,
your team's getting crushed.
Yeah, I mean, it happened last night with the Mets and the Marlins. The Marlins are, the Mets are laying 2-1. They're down 4-2. 4-2 in the 7th, and you take the Mets plus 165, 170 to win the game, and they do. It's just get the strong team of the week, and it's like these are the things that if you don't want to lay a price early on in the game, where I'm not laying 2-1 is that you like if you can't do it with Philly against Colorado because they win from start to finish, but the Dodgers seem to get behind in these games, and because their bats are so thick, they come back and they win. So it's a trend to watch that 6 of the 8 wins they've had, they've been down at one point in the game where you would get a better number if you bet at the start.
I love this. Yeah. I mean, you're waiting for your team to be down like 21-4 at the start of a basketball game. I mean, that's the time to fire.
Right.
Because how often have we seen it and especially if your buddy who's a human jinx taps you on the shoulder as you're watching the game and says, you're a cinch now.
Yeah.
Thinking that's it. All right. So you have the Bucks laying a bunch of points, 12 points tonight to beat completely inept and unqualified Philadelphia 76er team that also has no stake in anything except losing. Anything else strike your fancy for tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to look against our boys, I think. Memphis kind of is in that hunt for that 6th spot out west. They're laying 4.5. Tough back-to-back for the Heat dominating win. There's been this old trend that if a team wins a game by 15 the next night, usually they're not a cover. The team that gets blown out by 15 or more the next night was a trend that for years ago that was a pretty good trend that you could bet with. I'm going to go back to it tonight and say that Memphis covers the 4.5 Miami. They're playing great, 5 in a row. Tough spot here after back-to-back. Going Boston, Memphis might have been sitting here, which could be a plus or minus if they're John Morant and the boys are sitting in Miami for a night hanging out. So you don't know what that's going to do. But the line tells me that they're favoring Memphis a little bit. So I'm going to jump on the Grizz a little bit and take my chances. And also I'm going to go out to the field house in Indiana and jump on the dog at Tennessee Chattanooga, getting 3.5 from UC Irvine. Chattanooga's had some good wins. It was very impressive beating Loyola Illinois the other night. Like those little mid-major teams playing against each other in the NIT final. The last hurrah for the mid-major run, so we're going to take the dog in that one.
Very good, Mike Jones. All right, now you're off. You have, speaking about gambling, is there anything better than gambling on golf? Although it does make me nervous.
Yep.
And you're playing, and the old Lee Trevino concept there. Pressure is when you're playing a $10 Nassau and you only have $5.
Yeah.
in your pocket. So, what are you involved in? Something in Vegas? What's going on with that?
Well, just talking about the golf event that I'm playing in.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just
I
member,
like
a
to see.
regular member guest in the end of April. I
Yeah.
go out every year to play with a partnership, and it's kind of fun, thing to do. And next week, of course, is the Masters week. For not to golf, but to talk a little bit about it. Very sentimental time. I think the most underrated golfer in history is a guy right here in Boca Raton named Bernhard Langer.
Oh,
I
yeah,
went out there 2
been
years.
around forever.
Yeah, 2 years ago they played the Royal Palm Country Club hosted the seniors, and I watched Langer for 4 holes. I hit it out there where I hit it, and end up I'm watching him and he's making birdies, and I'm watching him make putts, and I'm thinking, what is he doing here? I watched him birdie 3 straight holes, and I let him go. Next thing you know, he shoots 63,
Yeah.
and he has 21 putts, and I'm like, that's like unheard of stats. And here's this guy bouncing around at 65, 66 years old and can play with all the young guys. And he's hitting hybrids into holes and always hitting first because all these guys are hitting a lot longer. So for us guys who don't have the distance and get older and all that, here's a hero playing his last round of the Masters. So I will be glued and watching Bernhard Langer
Oh,
play.
this is going to be it for him.
Yeah, he's done, and all he says is he wants to make the cut. I think one of the great traditions in all of golf is watching these guys come back. I loved when I went there 2014. One of the great events that there is. Probably the only event I will pay top dollar to go see again would be the Masters Golf Tournament, just
Wow.
because of the grounds and just the experience. I highly recommend it to anybody who's any love of golf, and especially a father-son group. But I was out there shockingly seeing so many fathers and sons together going to the Masters and watching as we bounce around town the days before. And I
Are
watched.
there any actual birds chirping on the course, or is it all just a phone?
Forget it. That
No.
course, and let me tell you, the,
Yeah.
the, the TV does not do it justice. You
I
better
saw
get in
it. Yeah, it
shape.
seems
You,
like
bet, you better get in shape because you will not understand the hills and half-mile walk into just to get to the grounds itself. The outskirts of it, Magnolia Lane,
unless you're
all the
Scotty Scheffler.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a walk. Like Tiger, the reason why I think like if you're bet against, if Tiger's not right, Achilles all back. As much as you want to bet him, and he gets fired up and juiced up, and he says he's going to be there.
Yeah.
That walk is brutal. When he was hurting, I don't know how he did it. It just shows the determination and how good of an athlete he is that he can just walk it. And what are you saying? How good of an athlete you have to be to walk a golf course? But that golf course
Oh
is
no, it's a
not like
lot when you
anything
think
else.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really incredible. So
I
I
mean, if it's a
look at that.
7,000-yard course,
Yeah,
you're talking about what? I mean, 3+ miles up
yeah,
and down hills.
yeah. It's really unique. It's really unique, and it's got a way of its own. I love it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I'll come up with something on Monday to give you a winner, try to pick out a winner. I usually like to go a little off the trail. I know Scheffler's been pretty consistent there, and I think he's as low odds as anybody has ever been there. John
There's
Rahm,
no romance in betting Scotty Scheffler to win a golf tournament. Even
no.
though he's always a likely winner. Let's
Yeah,
face it.
yeah.
And
So,
he's been really competitive. He came back from that hand injury that he sustained himself, cutting himself. But he came back, and he's been knocking on the door.
yeah,
So I mean, there's no question he's going to be dangerous and a factor in the tournament. Or
yeah,
you would have to think this guy's in the top 10 somewhere.
yeah,
Yeah, I like it too because I like it when the course is a little bit treacherous and where a relatively high score by comparison to certain years ends up winning it. Right, where you get
mhm.
3-4 under is what you're hoping to achieve. No, always a lot of fun. Now, you didn't spend a buck on a pimento cheese sandwich, did
I
you?
did.
On Wednesday?
As a matter of fact, you 2 lunches,
Seems
me
a
and a
bit
buddy,
pedestrian. I
with
mean,
$12.
yeah,
Pimento cheese, a beer, a candy bar, all that, $1, everything. They kept the
yeah,
prices like they are in the 40s, and 50s, and 60s.
yeah, but it's like $5,000 for a ticket. So
Well, yeah, you're paying for the ticket and probably through a scalper,
they
probably.
should throw you all the
And,
cheese you want. I
and,
mean,
and watch out for the 5 merchandise tents there. That'll get you every time.
oh my God, yeah.
Yeah,
I steer my wife away from, and she always wants to go through. And now the way they design these stadiums, you have to go through the gift shop
yeah,
just to get to your seat. I mean, that's criminal. Little kids, running out there. Next thing you know, you got like a Dennis Schwidtke jersey that the kid wanted for $250, and you're asking yourself, why did we come through here?
yeah.
All right, excellent stuff as always, Mike Jones. You have a great time out there, and of course, today sharpening up your game for the big money tournament out in Las Vegas. And it's always a pleasure. Big Gunner coming up this Tuesday
Yeah,
again.
Big Gunner Tuesday, getting closer and closer to the draft. Finding out a little bit more information. Had a insider conversation with a gentleman I met on a golf course who was a prominent football coach in the NFL. Was giving me my insiders that I should be a little bit more worried than confident in my team's quarterback decisions. Also found out that the Giants were close to getting Matthew Stafford, and the Raiders were also in there. That came out. I mean, it was all well and good, and great conversation.
I mean,
Yeah,
serious inside information there, Mike.
yeah, you got to dig, and I think what we're trying to do with the Giants is, a lot of these young bloggers really want the team to rebuild with a young quarterback. I just don't know. For me, I don't know that I see it in this draft. I agreed with a couple of he digs into quarterbacks very much so, and thinks Cam Ward is the real player out of this group. And he also liked Shell from Louisville, and he liked Will Howard actually from Ohio State. So stuff to watch and see how the Giants brass think like he does as he's got a new job with another team. I don't really want to give out his name because he gave me so much good information that I use. So, but it was a very interesting conversation. This is the great game of golf that you meet. You walk up on somebody when things are getting slow, and next thing you know, I look at him and I recognized who it was that I was playing with, and we played 9 holes together and got along great. Actually, went to lunch with him afterwards. So it was a great day, fun day for a guy who's a young podcaster, old in nature but young in podcasting, to get any kind of information you get. And what was really interesting is he told me that the agents stimulate all this information. So if you meet agents and you get some agents that are friends, they'll find you the information. They're happy to put it out there because it always helps their client. And he said that they're not afraid to talk to you about everything if you know how to do it. In my experience, when I told him I was an equipment manager in the NFL, he kind of wanted to hear more stories about Parcells and Belichick that he wanted to listen to. So it was very interesting.
All right. Sounds good. That's coming up on the Big Gunner podcast. It's Tuesdays at 10 right here on nofilter.net. And, of course, we'll talk again on Monday, and we'll know who's going to be in the championship game. And we're hoping it's Houston as we're trying to dream the impossible dream and come out of nowhere. 2 guys, I mean, you have legitimate college basketball expertise. I really only started getting into it. I mean, I perused some games really just on the periphery throughout the season, but I can't say that I was immersed in it. And then, you start talking to people on a variety of different shows. You get a little bit of a feel for it. And now we're experts, my friend. So let's hope that Houston has even the most remote chance against Duke. If they get by that, then you'd have to say that.
Oh, if they get by that, they can win the whole thing for sure. I mean, the winner of that game probably, I would, Florida probably be the favorite. But if Auburn gets by Florida, Houston may be favored if they meet up in the final. The 2 dogs win, like you said. Yeah, so it's just to me, it's a great time. I like the matchups. It should be fun, great watch. And I'd feel better if we had tried Clyde Drexler in there a little bit, but we'll go with what we got. But their guards are good, and everybody says it's about the guards. So if it's about the guards, it might be Houston and Florida because they seem to have the better guard groups. But we'll see.
Yeah, maybe they can do it again. 8 points with 5 minutes to go and a half. Tennessee, a good team. All right, Mike, always a pleasure. Have a good one, and thanks so much for being with us here on Bury Your Bookie.
Thank you.
All right, Mike Jones, ladies and gentlemen, with us here on the program. We will see you tomorrow. We'll have the professor. He's been on a roll trying to pick the final 2 games for you as the Final 4 is on tap. And we'll have a lot of fun as well with the professor, usually bringing us the big board. I don't know if we'll get into it tomorrow because there's so much to analyze in terms of these last couple of games as you fire away for the final time. But we'll see. Mike Jones with a good point. Now that you can do this in-game betting, it might be worth watching a few minutes of that Houston game before you get overwhelmingly involved and see the way it's being officiated, because that would make a huge difference if they allow Houston to be more physical than we've seen teams against the Duke Blue Devils. Then that would bode well for you having a chance, and us too, of finally defeating the cleaning lady. All right, we'll see you next time. We'll see you tomorrow in the next edition of Bury Your Bookie.